Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mahnur Ishaj from Group 8. Our presentation topic is Empires and Transnational Conflicts in the Indian Ocean World. So, I'll begin our presentation by introducing the Kingdom of Funan, one of the earliest and most influential trade hubs in Southeast Asia. While it may not be as well known as Srivijaya or Majapahit, Funan laid the foundation for regional trade by connecting major civilizations like India and China. Funan's strategic location near the Gulf of Thailand and along key maritime routes between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea made it a perfect stopover for merchants. Ships traveling between India and China often stopped here to restock, trade goods, and share information. Because of this, Funan became more than a trade stop, it was a vital link in the growing network of global exchange. One of Funan's standout features was its port system, especially the port of Osio on the Mekong Delta. Archaeologists have found fascinating artifacts here, from Roman medallions to Persian pottery and Indian sculptures, proving how connected Funan was to the wider ancient world. Trade through Funan included goods like Chinese silk, Southeast Asian spices, and Indian cotton. But importantly, Funan also helped transport horses from northwest India to China, animals that were essential for building and maintaining Chinese military power. Culturally, Funan was shaped by Indian influences. Hinduism arrived through trade, and Funan's rulers adopted Indian titles and religious practices to strengthen their political authority. This cultural blending helped shape the region's identity and contributed to what would later become the Maritime Silk Road. Now let's move on to the second slide. Now let's zoom in on two fascinating trade items, cloves and horses, both of which reveal how strategic Funan's role really was. Cloves came from the Maluku Islands in present-day Indonesia. In ancient times, they were highly valued, used for cooking, medicine, and rituals. Funan helped move cloves westward to India, China, and even the Mediterranean. This role made Funan a powerful and wealthy middleman in the spice trade. Trade wasn't one way, though. Horses traveled in the opposite direction from northwest India through Funan to China. These horses were crucial for Chinese dynasties like the Tang, who depended on strong cavalry forces. In this way, Funan became a key part of not just economic exchanges but also military and political power dynamics. So cloves brought wealth and prestige, while horses brought military strength. Together, they show how Funan was deeply involved in the global flow of both luxury and strategic goods, making it far more influential than we might think at first glance. Now let's move on to the next slide. Let's let's shift from trade to culture and religion. Funan wasn't just a commercial hub, it was also a gateway for spiritual and cultural exchange, especially from India. Hinduism arrived first, brought by Indian traders, priests, and diplomats. Funan's rulers adopted Indian titles and embraced ideas of divine kingship, using religion to legitimize their rule. Temples were built in Indian architectural styles, and Sanskrit was used in inscriptions, showing how deeply Indian culture influenced Funan. Later, Buddhism also began to spread through these same trade routes. Its teachings appealed to many, and it coexisted alongside Hinduism. Both religions left a lasting mark on Funan's art, politics, and society. shaping the spiritual foundation of Southeast Asia for centuries to come. This is all from my part. Now I am passing the floor to my next groupmate.
Thank you. Uh, uh, my name is Nikhat Das, and now I would like to present the Bantu explanation, expansion and Rafta people. The Bantu expansion was the major movement of people in African story history. The starting around 1000 BCE, Bantu-speaking people moved from Central Africa to South and East, bring farming, bring farming, iron tools, and their languages with them. By 300 CE, they reached the East African coast, where they influenced the culture and economy. One important coastal center and developed was Rafta, a port mentioned in ancient texts. Though the exact location is still debated, Rafta was clearly a key part of Indian Ocean trade network in trade network. It connected Africa to India, Arabic, and beyond. Rafta became a major hub for the ivory trade. Elephant tusks from East Africa were highly valued in places like India and the Mediterranean. Rafta also exported gold and silks, making it a vital point in ancient trade. The Bantu were also skilled sailors. They used monsoon winds to travel and trade across the ocean, helping create early trade routes over time. This effort helped from the Swahili coast, a region known for blending African and foreign cultures. Currently, the Bantu migration helped create Swahili culture and language. Swahili mixed bounty roads with Arabic and became a common language for trade. The Bantu expansion was just about moving people. It helped build a rich, connected world along Africa's coast. Moving on the next slide. The next slide is please move the next slide. The next slide is mapping the Rafta people. Rafta was more than just a trading port; it helped shape the entire Swahili coast. After the Bantu settled in East Africa, they built coastal towns that would grow into major cities like Mombasa, Zanzibar, and Kilwa. These cities become centers of trading goods like ivory, bananas, iron, tools, and slaves. Bantu farming, the metal working made these cities strong and self-sufficient. Their goods moved across the Indian Ocean, so showing how deeply Africa was connected to Asia and Arabic. The Bantu also helped build trade networks that reached across the sea. This brought new ideas, religions, and technologies in Africa. Islam, for example, spreaded through trade and became a major religion along the coast. Rafta, as an early trade center, played a key role in these exchanges. It wasn't just about goods. It was also about blending cultures. Swahili cultures grew from the mix of African, Arab, and later European influences. Even today, we see culture, fashion, in language, religion, and daily life on the Swahili coast. Moving on the next slide. Uh, the next slide is about interconnections between Southeast Asia and Africa. The Indian Ocean connected East Africa and Southeast Asia, creating one of the world's oldest global trade routes. Species the textile came from the Southeast Asia, while Africa traded ivory, gold, and slaves. Trade also brought culture exchange. One big change was the spread of Islam from Arab and Persian trades of African cities, like Zanzibar and Mombasa. These cities became religious and educational centers. Southeast Asian trades also shared their knowledge, in farming, art, and building. For example, coral stones architecture on the Swahili coast was influenced by Southeast Asia. Mosque and public buildings showed both local and foreign style. City-states like Kilwa and Sofala grew rich from trade and became powerful hubs of culture and commerce. They connected Africa with wider world and helped shape the region's future. The Indian Ocean trade deeply affected East Africa, its cities, culture, religion, and economy. Thus, connections made the Swahili coast a vibrant global region that still reflects those influences today. Thank you. This is the end my part.
Thank you, Nick. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rafael Alam, and I am going to start my talking from the Tang Dynasty and Malay Merchant. From today's point of view, let's step back to the 7th and 9th century, a time when the Tang Dynasty of China and the thriving Malay merchant class clashed over a familiar issue, which is control over trade. The Tang Dynasty, known for its military might and cultural power, wasn't just focused on land expansion. It recognized the growing importance of maritime trade and aimed to control crucial sea routes, especially the Strait of Malacca. This narrow strait was a gold mine connecting East Asia with the Indian Ocean, Middle East, and beyond. But local Malay merchants had long dominating this route, running successful independent trade networks. When the Tang tried to assert control through taxes, regulations, and diplomatic missions, the Malay merchants resisted. They weren't interested in becoming subordinates to our distant empires. Tensions rose, turning economic frictions into regional conflict. Despite attempts at diplomacy, the Tang resorted to stricter controls, sparking backlash. This conflict wasn't just about the trade, it was about sovereignty, autonomy, and who gets the shape to rules of commerce. Moving on, the next slide is about the impact of Tang government intervention. The Tang government aimed to tighten over control over maritime trade to boost its economy. Key to, is, Key to this effort was the establishment of the superintendent of the shipping trade, who oversaw ports, enforced law, and collected tax. However, these policies clashed with the autonomy of Malay merchant. The next tax war and regulations created a strain and led to resistance through smuggling, bribery, and avoidance of Chinese controlled ports. A major flashpoint came in 758 century when foreign merchants, angered by exploitations Gon- in Gonju, retaliated by sacking the city. This exposed the failure of Tang policies to manage trade diplomatically and fairly. While the Tang hoped to dominate trade, their aggressive approach ultimately weakened relationship and sparked regional instability. Moving on the next slide, which is about the Indian Ocean map. This is basically the mapping of Indian Ocean trade network. Now let's take a closer look at the Indian Ocean trade routes through the maps displayed on this slide. Because they are not just illustrations of geographically, they are powerful windows into a dynamic world of movement, connections, and transformation. The two maps we see here together offer both a historical and geographical lens in one of the most complex and far-reaching trade system in pre-modern history. Basically, they trace the arteries through which not just good but cultures, religions, technologies, and people flowed across continents. Let's begin with the first map. It it depicts the Indian Ocean trade networks at its peak during the classic and medieval period when maritime commerce was thriving from the eastern coast of Africa all the way to China. We see trade routes extended from ports like Siti in China to Calicut in South India, Colombo in Sri Lanka, Zanzibar in East Africa, and many other cities in the Middle East. These were not isolated dot in the map, but they are interconnected nodes, part of a living web of common and communication. One of the most critical features highlighted is the Strait of Malacca, a narrow but vital passageway between the Indian Ocean and the South Sea. Between this port, This trade became a strategical hotspot because of its ability to control access between East and Southeast Asia. It also when tensions between the Tang dynasty and Malay merchant escalated as the China sought to regulate and dominate the flow of trade through this maritime corridor. What seems like just a thin of strip of water on the map was in reality a geographical pressure point central to the transnational conflict and power struggle. This map also shown the monsoon wind pattern, which were the engine of the Indian Ocean trade. This wind followed predictable seasons rhythm. The summer monsoon from April to September push shipped westward, while the winter monsoon from October to March carried them back to east. Traders traders timed their voyage to ride these natural currents, allowing for sufficient and relatively reliable travel across thousands of miles. This environmental predictability is what made long-distance maritime trade not only possible but profitable and sustainability. Now let's shift to the next slide. So next map, which is our second map, which offers a modern geographical view of the Indian Ocean region. Here you can see how trade continued to flow through the coastal hubs as Mombasa, Zanzibar, Malacca, and Colombo places there were not just port but cosmopolitan cultural centers. This city became vibrant melting point where African, Arab, Persian, Indian, Southeast Asia, and Chinese communities lived, work, and worship side by side. Imagine the bustling market of Calicut or Malacca, spices from Java, silk from China, gold from Zimbabwe, and ceramics from Persian all exchange hand in this city. Languages like Swahili, Tamil, Arabic, and Chinese mingled in the street. You might witness Muslim merchant praying alongside Hindu sailor or Buddhist monk. You could dine on a meal blending North American dates with Indian spices served in the porcelain bowl imported from China. Trade in this context wasn't just economic, it was a deep culture. This maritime exchange spread religion like Islam and Buddhism, introduced new technologies like the astrolabe and Latin sail, and even influenced architecture and art, port city across the Indian Ocean and this site. And yet, this intricate network was also fragile, as we saw with the Tang's attempt to intervene in Southeast Asian trend, effort to dominate or over-regulate the system often met resistance and spark conflict, whether through economic pressure, diplomatic overreach, or misunderstanding. This tension remind us how delicate and decentralized the Indian Ocean truly was. Unlikely the Roman Empire overlooked roads of China, imperial England wrote the Indian Ocean. That is what made it up to unique and resilient. Empires come and went up the sea by connecting peoples. A world where people from different land meet not just to trade good, but to share stories, belief, innovations, and identity. The Indian Ocean, far from being barrier between continent, was high united them. It was highway of united them. This map tells us the story of commerce, conflict, culture, and connection, and they remind us the history that is not just made of land, sometimes the shape of powerful of the sea. So true. So when we study the Indian Ocean, when we study two map of the Indian Oceans of the world, we understand that this was not just a place of isolation, but a space of endless movement of people, goods, culture, and sometimes conflict. It is a reason that reminds us how deeply interconnected the world was been and how trade for better or worse shaped the way civilization interact. On the other hand, eventually decline of direct Chinese interventions in the Indian Ocean following the fall of the Tang Dynasty allowed for more diverse and flexible trading networks to emerge in the Southeast Asia. Local merchants regained a sense of autonomy. A new power, not just China, began to play a significant role in the traditional West. In, by the case, in many ways, the Tang Dynasty intervention set the stage for future interactions between imperial power and local merchant network, which is highlighted an inward truth. While empires may seek control the resilience of local merchants with the network's autonomy, remains a powerful force in the global trade. Basically, this is what the Indian Ocean map trading indicates us. Now, this is our references from which we have make the slide, make all the sources and make all the contents to our slide. So that's all from our side. That's all from group 8. Thank you very much for listening to us.